Ever wanted to be rich? Oh, who am I kidding? Of course you want to be rich. Whether it's dollars, euros, or pound sterling, you've been clamoring to get it. We all have. But when this world collapses, that paper just becomes, well, paper. If you've seen some of my last videos, you probably know one thing. I can't help myself with the apocalypse. And zombie TV has taken up about 99% of my life's watch time. Throughout all that time, one thing has been on my mind. How could you get rich in this situation? Hell, what does it even mean to be rich? And thus, this video serves to answer that question. Think of this as your comprehensive guide to zombie apocalypse financial success. And leave most of your morals at the door. We're going full anarcho-capitalist on this bitch. So, I'm going to skip the pre-apocalypse part, as quite simply that isn't the point for this video. I already did that in my other video, and quite frankly, you don't need to prepare in any special way before the apocalypse to get rich during it. From this point, we're going to get ready to start looting, and this is the part that is absolutely pivotal. You may remember in my last apocalypse video that I advised not to get carried away with looting. This time, I'll contradict myself. You need to be doing as many loot runs as you possibly can with the biggest profit you possibly can. Big bags worth of profit, which in this case would be practically anything. Become a complete hoarder. Your home is likely going to end up looking like, well, this. But it's worth it in the end. Is any of this safe?
Absolutely fucking not.
Will you be thanking me in the end? Absolutely. Your key priority should be inventory numbers. The only people that truly matter in this current moment are your loot runners, and the people who you think can sell that loot. That is the most efficient way to come at it. Loot is the central point behind literally anything's worth now. How much time or energy does something take to even get, or better yet, how useful is that item when compared to other things? As of now, it doesn't matter. You have no customers, so don't start thinking of prices just yet. How can we fix that little problem? Well, any person who isn't directly an issue should be used both as a way to get information, but also as a potential customer. The main way your wares are even going to be known about is through the word of mouth, the oldest form of advertising on this planet. So you better make sure you have a good image planned out. Look at it this way. From this point on, you have to act like a CEO would. Kind and caring on the surface, but behind closed doors, completely ruthless and profit-driven. The key to good business has always been public perception. Look to Amazon as an example. Huge giga corporation with some pretty shady and ruthless tendencies. Yet, they come off as this benevolent, kind tool for your everyday needs, merely giving you what you want with a smile. That's also something that's incredibly important. Your outward image as a brand. People tend to forget that almost everything in their life is subtly influencing and manipulating their actions. The bold red of a Coke can, the vibrant colours of a candy packaging, or the calming blue of a PlayStation, although that one's debatable. Creating a brand is a very delicate process. One which I'm quite knowledgeable on, if I were to toot my own horn. Let's start with the importance of colour. One of the first things you learn in graphic design, or any art form in general, is how important colour actually is. Once you see it the first time, you'll never stop seeing it. And this is called colour theory. And if you're even slightly artsy, you've probably found this somewhere before. Colour theory is the study of how colour can affect things like emotions and even perceptions of events. For our purposes, colour is something you want to use to your own advantage. Most people aren't consciously noticing colour theory when it affects them. In fact, now that I've mentioned it, there's a strong likelihood that you'll see it around you for a little while. Colour theory is one of those sciences that has been repeatedly conditioned and hammered into your mind. Things like red being the colour of aggression, boldness, or even passion. Colour can even have a physical effect on a person without even realising it. An example being something like red lipstick, the worldwide symbol of feminine allure. There's thousands of these kinds of colour manipulations in everyday life, but the ones we need to know vary. We want to come off in a certain way. The choice is how. You have to shape your business around your personality in a way. If you're an extroverted, bold trailblazer, you'll be better off with a warmer colour palette that reinforces that feeling. As mentioned before, Coca-Cola is a great example of this. And not just for the reason you think. When you look at Coca-Cola's recent product line, what do you find? Different colours of products. The food and drink industry gains the most from colour theory. sometimes even tricking your brain into tasting something more than it really does. There's a reason Diet Coke tastes almost premium. That silver-colored can does a lot of conditioning onto your brain before you even crack it open, because obviously, if you want it to come off as a calming, helping hand, then you probably see a lot of success in the cooler colours. Blues and greens often work the strongest, blue even being the colour thought of as most effective for this. Ultimately, the colours and branding you pick will influence people in a certain way around you. Image either kills or creates a business. A good name can do things like that, but a brand can pierce through people's thoughts better than even a product can. Speaking of which, if you followed the directions before, I'd imagine your home is starting to look sort of like a Redditor's basement dwelling, with just literally everything everywhere. Ugh. One thing you'll have to get used to is your greed. The need to always have more. It's a delicate balancing act that you have to learn to use to your advantage. Not everyone is made to be a businessman. Let me teach you a little thing about businesses. They're not typically ran by one person. Ideally, what you want to have is a few lackeys. These people will handle the new products, a few people handling the numbers, and in perspective, a metric shit ton of people making the products. At least, that's how businesses are essentially run today. Obviously, that's not going to apply as well when the global population is only going downwards. Here's what you need in the apocalypse before you even start to sell to your first customers. The silver-tongued salesman, who in this case is likely you. Considering you picked this video, even the mere action of that shows a level of entrepreneurial ambition, which is exactly what you need. Then you need your muscle. Someone who makes sure that you don't, die. Negotiations are going to get pretty heated at times, and it's probably for the best that you have a backup plan. Your muscle is the apocalypse equivalent to a security guard, except for the fact that they could kill you now, so play nice. Moving on, you'll need loot runners. These people are going to go out and find things to sell. You should think of these as your employees. You're their boss, and you say what they should and shouldn't do. A flat business model is incredibly dangerous when you can be murdered from pretty much any angle with no consequences. Anyways, if you're thinking a little bit more boldly, you might even want to get some idea guys. These are pretty much your R&D. You can have pretty much as many of these as you like. Maybe even offer incentives to any loot runners with bright ideas. A thing you have to remember is, everyone has a brain. Perspective plays an incredible part when it comes to businesses. Even if someone is a complete idiot, they see things differently to you, and that's valuable. You want to look at everything with as many eyes as is possible. A good crew is incredibly important when you have to try anything in life, and that's even before the apocalypse. You can't have any descendants though. The number one most important thing is loyalty. You can have as big as a crew as you like, but if you can't trust them, they're more of a risk than they are an asset. Ensure that you listen to them and hear their pleas, lest they start to think a little less in your favor. Moving on from your crew, let's look towards the actual state of the business and see that your customer graph is, well, flat. Nobody even knows who you are. That's obviously a pretty big problem. When looking at things in business, two problems tend to arise: supply and demand. They're quite literal golden lifeblood of business. You've already solved the first part, the supply. You have loot runners to fix that exact thing. Now let's make sure that demand can even follow or even surpass the supply. So let's get straight to it, shall we? The way that businesses created demand in the old world before the apocalypse was through, obviously, their products, but also from their advertising. Everything is a commodity, and you're best suited to exploit that fact. You need to have some kind of selling point other than just your products. A product could be quite literally revolutionary, but if people never find out about it, the product will fall flat on its face. Look to air, bed, and breakfast, or as most people know it, Airbnb. At first, they were barely making ends meet because, well, their entire brand was incredibly confusing. The name was long-winded, their website was amateur, and the brand felt unprofessional. The rebranding was probably the only thing that saved the company, and it's one of the biggest players in the world now. They had a good business, but it didn't make their branding clear. Whilst JCPenney had the exact reverse problem. They never made it quite clear why you should pick them over anything else. This is something that marketers call a USP, or a unique sales proposition. Think of it as buy one, get one free. Or even things like saying merely just lowest prices. Even if it's a lie, it's still a selling point. Amazon made billions from their incredible 2-day deliveries. They made a name that they could back up reliably. This is exactly what you need to do. Perhaps it will be cleanest weaponry, clearest water, food that tastes like the ones from before the apocalypse. Whatever it is, you have to wear it on your sleeves and say it proudly. Only then can you start looking for customers. Picture your sales pitch like a conversation. They ask why they should get things from you. Say your USP. Another way to get customers is leave things like notes on doors. This follows the same principle as billboard advertising. You can do it anywhere. People are naturally curious, and there's no way anyone could pass up on seeing what you have in stock. Luckily, since the apocalypse is only getting started, you get to practically make up whatever prices you like. This is where something incredibly important comes into play: a method of sales. Since money is, well, useless, you're likely going to have to go towards a bartering system. Trading items for other items. Things like a water bottle for a mobile phone, that kind of thing. If you've watched my previous Apocalypse video, then you might remember that there was a pretty open currency problem. This is the part where you can get creative and you maybe even implement your own currency for certain goods. However, I'd advise against doing this in the early days, as they could very easily be exploited. Until then, use a bartering system with some level of consistency. And remember to keep your cool in as many situations as you possibly can. Things are only going to get harder with time. Now, I'll be honest, not that many people will actually get past the first stage, as they'll fall to either murder, disease, betrayal, robbery, or even the classic, running out of supply. But the lucky ones that use all the points from the last stage, those will survive. It likely wasn't easy for them to keep surviving, but it was exactly what they needed to do. Their survival and willingness to keep operating at either similar capacity or even bigger was the exact thing that kept them alive. And that's where the second stage begins. Ideally a few weeks to a month into the apocalypse. Now, one of the first problems post-apocalypse businesses would actually find is in the supply chain. What's to stop raiders from simply killing your loot runners and taking what they like for free? Well, clearly you need some more muscle. But where exactly are you going to find those kind of people? Obviously, you could try your hand at picking through your customer base, and maybe that would work for you. Probably offering a discount to some products. You help with getting the product, you get a little bit off the price. Is that likely going to be good enough for everyone? God no. Business is almost never a one-size-fits-all deal, so expect to bargain for a little while when getting an extra hand. However, when you're up to that, here's the people you really need to be looking for. These kind of guys. These people are a group of gruff, threatening people, and if even one of these groupies buys from you frequently, you have a way in. Try to cut a deal with their group's leader, a discount, a cut of the loot, whatever. You need the extra security. It's a risky move, definitely, but it's absolutely essential and could even expand your business later on. Cutting a deal likely won't be easy, but it keeps you in power. Think of that gruff group as your new business partners. There's less risk for your people, and it gives you even more power. Remember that in this world, might makes right, and the person who's right will survive the night. Okay, that was awful. Moving on. Here's a new thing. What are your customers trading the most? Because that could be your main thing. At first, companies like Amazon sold very specific things. In Amazon's case, books. You shouldn't completely sideline what is sold less, but instead sell it for cheaper. If an item has a low demand and a high supply, you have a problem. Keep the low demand items cheap and the high demand items expensive. That's pretty much economics 101. As such, let's make it more efficient. One of the first ways we can make this business simpler on our side is organization. Keep all your things of the same type together, obviously. Water in one box, scraps in another, techie stuff in another one, and so on, so forth. And whilst you're doing that, take an inventory of all of them, so that you don't have to go check the storage room whenever a customer asks you about something you didn't expect. This is the way to becoming the most dominant trading force in the region. Absolute reliability. Human beings are drawn to the easiest path in life, even without the fear of death breathing down their neck. So, how can we make their lives even simpler? Sell everything. I'm not joking. Sell everything. Give your most trusted employees an even better proposition, in trade for them having their own stands to sell from. At this point, you're starting to build a diverse customer base with a lot of different needs. Obviously, you won't be able to see every single one of these needs, but you certainly can try. There's a high chance that there'll be some competitors near your land, and that's exactly what we're hoping for, as a good deal could lead to an amazing boost in customers. And if they refuse, put that security team to good use and take what you want. When expanding a business, you can't be bothered with such petty things like morality. Morals are relative. They change with things like culture and time. Both of those have been seriously damaged with, well, literal anarchy. However, we could use it to our advantage. Businesses before the apocalypse were restricted by these petty little things called law. With no central government around, we can do what we like. Every single thing is on the table, whether it be drugs, prostitution, and pretty much anything else. Am I saying you should do those things? Heavens no. Am I saying it'd be profitable? Absolutely. That'd be so profitable. And who says you can't just dabble? Those chemical solutions would be an absolute godsend for staying awake in a lot of situations. Take World War II as a clear example. The German Blitzkrieg was heavily aided by the use of literal methamphetamine. Get creative. You can do literally whatever you want. This is the anarcho-capitalist dream, but it is a delicate balance. If you tilt one direction just a little too far, your business could very easily crumble, just as fast as it grew. You absolutely cannot afford to alienate your customers. You need to make a relationship with those customers that you can stick to, but I'd hope you're taking the first stage's lessons and still applying them. Just because you're out of stage 1 doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. You have to remember, every great business needs to evolve. The only time you can dig your heels in and not change a thing is when you feel like you have no real problems or competition. Two businesses competing for customers is the equivalent of war for them. When they're not competing, they can be rigid, stick to their usual, and just let the cash flow in. But when they do have something on the line, that's when they need to be fluid. That's when they evolve the most. And the next thing our business is going to do is evolve. This evolution that brings an incredible amount of power is called money. Yeah, money. We're bringing that back. Once you feel like you can reliably back it up, you can implement your own currencies to your heart's content.
But Carver, how do you even make money?
Great question, valued viewer, that I definitely don't know. What makes money work is what backs it up, whether it's gold, the government, or pretty much anything else. If you're lucky, then you'll get to pick a brand new form of currency, whether it be a type of coin or some marks on a piece of paper. That relies on whether or not there is already a currency in the world that most people accept. If that does exist, take it and run with it. It's the easiest solution to this. Otherwise, you're gonna have to make your own, and if you've studied economics, you'll know that can be a big old mess. But since we're being the best anarcho-capitalist possible, we're actually gonna make the plunge. And luckily, I've already sort of touched on this before in a previous video. And if you remember that one, you'll remember that I said that most currencies have a backing. Years ago, likely before you were even born, it was backed by gold. This was known as the gold standard. Every bill was worth the same amount of gold. Now obviously there's some pretty big issues with the paper currencies, especially when it comes to counterfeiting. Obviously that's one of the biggest risks with any currency. If you're really going to try it, you have to solve that problem. Any kind of money is only really worth the amount of trust its users have in it. Take the Zimbabwean dollar in the early 2000s. They had a pretty severe problem. They were running out of money and needed to fund government projects, so naturally, they just printed more. How exactly is this bad? Incredibly simple. The more of these dollars exist in the world, the less value they actually have. Take this as an example. A store keeps $300 worth of stock at all times, and the average person merely buys $3 before the restock. That means the store can sell to, at most, 100 people before a restock. But then, you add more cash to that equation, merely doubling the amount from $3 per person to $6 per person. And voila, you've just cut the amount of things the store can reliably sell in half. So what does the store do? They match their prices to the way they were before, just with new digits. That is, in an incredibly small nutshell, how inflation works. Please note that I am both horrible at math and not an economist. But that's pretty much how any paper money has any value. A backing mixed with trust. However, gold might be a little bit too hopeful for the apocalypse. You know what would be a great backing for a currency though? Water. Every single human on this planet needs water, and thus, it makes for an incredibly reliable backing, as everyone can agree as value. That's one of the simplest ways to make a new currency. Just making it safer would be very, very important, or as these apocalypse dollars, or apoca dollars as I so love to call them, have no real security to them. They're just paper with a promise of water backing it, making them incredibly easy to counterfeit. Even a single working photocopier could probably do the job, so let's change that. One of the simplest ways to make these harder to counterfeit is these security threads. These thin metal strips would make photocopying literally useless, since, well, you can't exactly photocopy metal. Who would have thought? Now, is this perfect? No, absolutely not. Is it simple though? Very. And that's the exact sort of thing that we're looking for. It means that any counterfeiting will have to be an actual operation with probably an amount of work behind it. Not just some dude called Larry in a shed with a photocopier. One other less simple thing we could work on is serial numbers. Those two, metal threads mixed with serial numbers, was how a lot of countries kept their currencies before the switch to things like plastic. Once you've got an idea what you're doing with those, you can make your standard plates and then use those for your bills. You'll obviously need 2 separate sided plates, back and front designs. You can get pretty creative with that part, so I'll leave you to it. Or you could take the much easier way and just use bottle caps, Fallout style. They're everywhere, not many people would know how to make them, and the machinery needed to manufacture them is probably going to be damaged by now. But you wouldn't stoop that low, would you? You want full control, don't you? What do you mean I'm crazy? I'm not crazy, you're crazy! Come back here, we're not done yet! Don't you dare cut to the next stage, you motherfucker! Well, wouldn't you look at that? All the profit piling up. You're like the apocalypse equivalent to a king. You control the money, the products they need, you have people to serve absolutely every last need that your customers could have. They should be thanking you. You've given them literally every single thing they could ever want. For a price, of course. However, business is always looking for ways to evolve. And this is exactly what needs to happen. Whilst your customers may be happy, they're certainly bored with this apocalyptic life. There's nothing exciting for them to do other than to get into fights with their fellow man, or if they're so lucky, zombies. Here's a little thing. Remember those looting routes that you took control of in the very beginning of this? It's time for those to get bigger, and more importantly, more secure. Over time, your business will grow not only in number of customers, but also in number of products. Both of those should be translating directly to more profit in your head by now. It's just a natural thing you can expect. Human beings are social creatures that crave social connections, whether they admit it or not. You should exploit that fact. Start to recruit more and more people into your little security clique, whom at this point are probably very well armed and decently organized, but importantly, loyal to you. At this point, you are basically a business with a state. Think of it like Amazon controlling a country. They rule the police, the stores, the money you pay for your food, everything. The beauty that I will always stand by about anarcho-capitalist society will be its opt-in, opt-out nature. Human beings don't typically like the feeling of being controlled unless you're into that or something. You need to give them the illusion that they're actually serving their own interests, not yours. After all, that's why you pay them. Everybody has a goal in life. Difference is, the corporate ladder is now basically the only ladder to climb, other than just pure survival. However, when someone wishes to opt out of the society you're building, make sure they've finished absolutely everything they need to and paid their dues. If they can pay their way out, let them out. You don't want to be seen as this oppressive, overt force, or they probably won't like you. And if they don't like you, they probably won't buy from you. We can actually use these new people that are discovering your business, so recruit some of them. Train to do very specific things and then reward them handsomely for following your rules. What are we teaching them? Well, to exploit the cravings of your customers, of course. What you've built can't really be called merely a business anymore. You are quite literally a corporatocracy. Your state quite literally is a huge business. The police are private, the prices are competitive, and people use your money. Democracy? Who needs it? The people are happy, no? You are the ruling class. Now satisfy the masses. Play to the most innate of human desires. Power, sex, a way to escape, entertainment. As Juvenal once said, give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt. Send those specifically trained recruits to exploit every last one of those cravings. Gambling, drugs, prostitution, who cares if it's morally wrong? It makes buckets and buckets of profit. Whilst you're taking advantage of, well, everything, maybe we could actually bring back some of the more simplistic things from the old world. Put it lightly, if it's addictive, it's incredibly profitable. Just in case you didn't realize, almost everything in our old world is addictive. Smoking, caffeine, sugar, human society is built on addictions. Addictions to power, to substances, to activities. We are incredibly easy to predict. Like water, we take the easiest solution to most things. It's hardwired into our minds through millions of years of evolution. Find ways to acquire these so important addictive additives. They can't revolt if they've got a crippling addiction to the things you sell after all. The things you need could be thousands of miles away, across an ocean for all I care. You have the power to fix a boat and build a damn colony at this rate. This is the anarcho-capitalist dream. The construction of an empire built from dedication and hard work. Who would dare stand in your way? You have given them absolutely everything and they love you for it. You are their royalty. You got rich in the apocalypse. So, I'm back. For those who weren't in the Discord, or for those who didn't even know the Discord existed, I have been having a lot of trouble when it comes to audio, and thus I bought a completely new microphone. This script was finished on the 21st of May, and the audio was only done on the 22nd. This video took months to make. I'm so fucking tired right now. However, I will say, all of those issues are behind us. We're back. Thanks though for watching and hearing me ramble. I'm glad to be back. Bye bye.